So I'm sorry for the mess up here. I'm going to speak on a new therapy which cardiologists have started performing. Not many, but I think we are the only center in the country which is doing this, and there are a few centers in the United States who have been doing it under a trial. It's pudendal artery intervention for erectile male dysfunction, and whether cardiologists have the treatment of importance, at least in some patients. Now coming on to the statistics, erectile dysfunction is a recurrent inability to achieve or maintain an erection satisfactory for sexual intercourse, and it's an important growing health issue. It's estimated that more than 200 million men suffer from erectile dysfunction in the United States alone, and 50% of these would range between 40 to 70 years of age. And many people believe that it's both underreported and also very much undertreated. Can somebody help me with my... यहीं रुको, ठीक है? Just stay here. Now, the current evaluation therapies consist of identifying and treating a reversible cause, especially the use of phosphodiesterase 5 inhibitors. But unfortunately, despite the large market of PDE5 inhibitors like Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, 50% of the men would have a suboptimal result to these inhibitors, and this sort of effect actually worsens with time. So once we have a Viagra failure or PGDE5 inhibitor failure, we classify them as complex EDs, and only these patients of complex EDs who are worked up for an ischemic erectile dysfunction and who are positive go for an angiogram. And if on an angiogram we find that there is internal pudendal artery stenosis, then these patients are subjected to internal pudendal artery stenting with the hope that probably this may alleviate their symptoms. So the first step is that we have to rule out the psychological causes, other causes of erectile dysfunction, and then put them on Viagra. If they fail Viagra or a PGDE5 inhibitor therapy, they go for a ischemic testing for male impotence. Now, this consists of an intracavernous pharmaco test, and we give papaverine intracavernosally and then do a penile Doppler. Now, if in a penile Doppler the peak systolic velocity is less than 25 centimeter per second, the sensitivity is 100% sensitivity and 95% specificity in selecting these patients who would probably be having problem related to inflow, the impairment of inflow in the penile artery, and these patients would usually have internal iliac artery stenosis or internal pudendal artery stenosis. Then these patients would undergo arteriography, and once the arteriography identifies internal pudendal artery as a problem, stenosis as a problem, these patients are then subjected to angioplasty. Now, we started this program after the last APWIC, and this is a 55 years old gentleman who is a judge by profession, non-diabetic, presented with complex ED. He was on Viagra 50 milligram twice daily, and he had dilated visible veins in the leg with lipodermatosclerosis. This is the duplex scan which shows that there is an evidence of internal pudendal artery stenosis. We go from the contralateral side, and this is a Simmons catheter. We try to get into acute angle of aortic bifurcation. After that, we engage the internal iliac artery, then go down through this hydrophilic catheter, which is 3 French, with the help of a hydrophilic guide wire into the pudendal artery, which you can see is right here, right at this point. While doing so, we have to angulate our tube in many directions because these arteries are very tortuous, and usually we have to go to the caudal views, cranial views, LAO and RAO to get to the right projection. Now here you see there is a stenosis of the left internal pudendal artery. Then after that, on the road map, we pass in a 014 hydrophilic whisper wire across the stenosis. And then we change our projections. We confirm the position of the stenosis. And then take in a balloon. Usually we take hydrophilic balloons and they start from 1.5, 1.25 millimeter and we go almost up to 2.5 to 3 millimeter in diameter. So this is the balloon in place. This is the first dilatation. And this is the final result. Initially, we used to have just balloon angioplasty, then we went on to drug-eluting balloons. And now sometimes if we have a recoil or we have a dissection, we go on for stenting these pudendal arteries. This is the final. Initially, we used to have just balloon angioplasty, then we went on to drug-eluting balloons. And now sometimes if we have a recoil or we have a dissection, we go on for stenting these pudendal arteries. This is the final result. In our experience, we have done 13 cases, and which we have analyzed. Actually, we have done 19. We have done balloon angioplasty in 11 of these. We have put drug-eluting stents in 2 of these, and we have a clinical success in 11 patients. But this is a very subjective success because we are not very sure. We don't know how much time it takes for the patient to improve his functions. And we do get repeat penile Dopplers, and most of these patients would have an improvement in the penile Dopplers. Now coming on to the literature, there is a high quality diagnostic angiographic studies are available to interpret internal pudendal artery stenosis as a key cause. There are numerous arteriographic adjuncts which are required. We need to have a vasodilation with intracavernosal injection of epaverine or a phentolamine mixture. We have to do very selective internal pudendal artery injections. We have to have magnified and angulated views, and we need to have a non-ionic contrast and a tailor-made radiographic projections. While we identify these, it's also very important. There are other causes of vasculogenic erectile dysfunction. The most common is a venous leak. So first we have to exclude patients who have venous leak, because most of these patients who do not improve or who are poor candidates for internal pudendal artery stenting actually have venous leak problems. Now there have been a lot of literature available on this, but they were very small reports, 4 or 5 patients each. The first report was published in Journal of Catheterization and Cardiovascular Diagnosis in 1987 by Angelini. And he reported a series of 5 patients. 4 had bilateral obstruction, 1 had a unilateral obstruction. Balloon angioplasty was done in bilateral lesions in 3 patients and unilateral lesions in 2 patients. 4 out of the 5 had improvement, which in function for 2 to 18 months after angiography. But some other early angiography studies failed to demonstrate long-term benefits, probably because of restenosis. Now, the ZEN trial is complete, and this was a trial done in 50 patients in the United States using an Endeavor stent, 30 patients in the United States using an Endeavor stent, and it proved that it is the first important first-in-men study with the proof of concept of the feasibility and safety of this intervention. And it also, post-intervention, it showed an improvement in patients at 3 to 6 months. Now, the etiology of erectile dysfunction is multifactorial, with the majority of cases being vasculogenic, either related to inadequate arterial inflow or impaired cavernosal smooth muscle relaxation or increased permeability of the venous sinusoids, leading to venous leak. There is a very strong epidemiological link between erectile dysfunction, coronary artery disease, and peripheral vascular disease, and especially it's of special importance for cardiovascular specialists, as all 3 conditions share common risk factors like diabetes, smoking, dyslipidemia, hypertension, etc. It has indeed emerged as a potential harbinger of subsequent cardiovascular events. It is estimated that more than 70% of men with new onset anginal symptom and or angiography documented coronary artery disease have some degree of erectile dysfunction. what is the normal angiographic anatomy of internal pudendal artery and how do angiographic findings correlate with erectile dysfunction? How many men with suspected or known CAD or PAD would have significant atherosclerosis, internal pudendal artery disease, and erectile dysfunctions are the things which need to be considered. There is this important question is being addressed by an ongoing IMPASS trial, which is the incidence of male pudendal artery stenosis in suboptimal erection. This is an important follow-up study to Zen trial, and this is evaluating angiographic potential, a pattern of potential internal pudendal artery atherosclerosis disease in 350 men undergoing coronary angiography or peripheral angiography procedures with a diagnosis and treatment of CAD and PAD in 15 United States centers. This registry will attempt to correlate angiographic evidence of internal pudendal artery atherosclerotic disease in men with and without erectile dysfunction. Men with erectile dysfunction at the time of angiography will be followed up longitudinally for 3 years to assess the potential development of erectile dysfunction in future. So this is an ongoing, a new sort of procedure. We do not know what is the current status. There has been some anecdotal and maybe more small series showing benefits, but we actually do not know what is the right way to go here, and these trials would give us much more information in the subsequent months. Thank you.
For the excellent newer area of intervention, which is kind of unexplored. Any questions from the Dr. Collins? Do you have any comments on this procedure?
No. We check it from both sides actually. This is just to give you an example how we do it. We do it on both sides. No, it was not normal. It was on both sides. This is just to give you how we do it. Yes. Otherwise I think the circulation is adequate. Most of these people would have either a bilateral internal pudendal artery stenosis or would have an internal pudendal artery stenosis on one side with probably an occlusion in internal iliac or a stenosis in internal iliac.
So if it is bilateral, opening one is enough?
We really don't know whether one is enough or two is enough. We just have very small experience. Normally we open both.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the Zen trial, so you mentioned that there were 50 patients. Actually, I think in the study they probably used about 30 of those patients for the publication that came out. But it's still controversial, and whether or not this is going to be something durable. And as you mentioned, which patients or who are the right patients, and how do we screen those patients? Not only how do we screen them, how do we treat them, and how do we follow them up, are still issues. So I think it's still early, so it's not ready for prime time. But I think it's important, like you're doing, is that when we do these cases, that we need to keep registry data, or we need to pool our data, because there's not a lot of experience and not a lot of data to pull from to say whether or not this will be a durable or a smart thing to do or not.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is something which probably could have a potential use, but we do not know.
If there are no questions, we can come into this presentation. Do you have anything else?
No, thank you.